Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our school board workshop on April 11, 2023. And this is regarding information technology services and our technology strategic plan. I first want to thank all of you for all the work that you've committed to this folder. It was really very comprehensive. And I'll go ahead and hand this over to Superintendent Davis.
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you so very much. I know this has been a much anticipated workshop to be able to address technology and infrastructure within our school district. Today our staff, and led by Dr. Weeks, will talk about all of the data superhighways that we currently have with our infrastructure. What are our next steps will be, what are we currently implementing within our district, looking at cybersecurity, student well-being, at the same token looking at classroom standards and what those classroom standards will be as we look at a 5-year implementation plan, and also being able to look at any software, hardware implementation plans that we have as we continue to make certain that we have sustainability and efficiency within our school district, along with identifying what funding sources will help us as we continue to purchase state-of-the-art technology and just try to put the best products in the hands not only of our educators but of our students as well. And then being able to have conversations about the evaluation process. What does that evaluation process look like? How often do we have to make ongoing changes, whether it be through infrastructure, whether it be through devices, and then how we can continue to be systemic with our approach. And all this is about enriching the educational environment and making certain that we meet our students where they are from a technological perspective, but continue to expose them to equipment, materials, and content that allows them to be pushed every single day. So, Dr. Weeks, I'll transition to you if you introduce your team, and then we'll do a 15-minute presentation, then just open this up for conversations.
Certainly. Thank you, Superintendent. Through the chair, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, board members. I'd like to, at this point, talk about the team that I've assembled to walk us through this plan today. I have Scott Gaffner, who's our General Manager for IT Operations, Greg Hart, who's Department Manager within IT, leading our Customer Experience team, and then we're joined by Chris Holt, who's the Supervisor for Technology Training within the Professional Development Department. What I'd like to do today is just do a quick overview, outline some of the items that are contained within the packet that you have. Obviously, this will be a very condensed version of this. The first thing I want to talk about is really looking at where we were with IT. The last time that we've had anything done in terms of an audit or an overall review of the IT organization was back in 2014 with the Scenera report and 2017 with the Gibson audit. And both of those had identified a number of areas that I would consider weaknesses or shortcomings when it comes to the district's overall viewpoint on technology. You know, one of the things that we are doing is looking at those two reports setting to provide us with a general underlying foundation for where we needed to start, and then looking at what the modern requirements for a classroom are today, and from an administrative perspective to support the district, trying to figure out what's the best products and solutions that we can put in front of our students, our staff, our administrative employees, most importantly our teachers, so that they can do their jobs. So we noticed that there was a lot of older systems in place, legacy systems. We'll talk a little bit about those. The number of computing devices that we had, especially in front of our students, was definitely inadequate, and that was multiplied, unfortunately, when we saw the COVID pandemic closing us down. We had issues with that. Our aging infrastructure has really caused us problems all along the past few years, and really looking at it from a support staff. So we'll talk a little bit about all of those items, and then we will look forward to responding to any questions that you as the board may have. And at this point, I'll turn it over to Mr. Gaffner.
Thank you. As Dr. Weeks pointed out, devices were called out on both reports, both being inadequate numbers and inadequate age or performance. Prior to these reports coming out, the district strategy was 1/3 of the computers at 1/3 of the sites every year. This worked well. The technology wasn't solely based on online testing and lab mentality. So around 2016, 2017, on the advice of the audits, we put in a VDI infrastructure to ease some of the performance problems that we're having with the aged devices. We also started purchasing extra laptops and computer refreshes in the labs. This continued to roll on through 2018. When we got to 2019, 2020, when COVID hit, we were down to only 30,000 viable devices to send home to students. We quickly purchased 48,000 devices to distribute out to our student population for COVID. We continue to purchase, as you can see on the chart, in 21 and 22, we really escalated our device purchases for student use and staff use. So as we stand now, every teacher has received a brand new Surface device, monitor, keyboard, and bundle. And we are now approaching our goal of a one-to-one across the district. Our vision of one-to-one is a student has a device when they need it on the site. We'll be just shy of our 4-year target, but we are rapidly closing in on that. Next piece that was identified in the audits was our infrastructure. It's aged and did not provide the capacity or bandwidth needed to support modern technologies. So we started implementing a wireless solution and completed that in 2022 with an installation of a brand new wireless system with about 20,000 access points across the district. We've also now just signed a new contract to address the local area network switches and LANs. So in order to support all these devices that we're adding, we have to have the infrastructure to make sure that they can get to the sites that they need. So we've addressed the wireless capacity, and now we're proceeding to move on to the LAN. The LAN is basically your internal communications, so that's your wireless cloud, your wired and wireless communications within the site. So this project will be kicking off in about 6 months, but we'll be kicking off this project. The third tier, or the second leg of our network, is our WAN. That's a wide area network that connects our schools to our data center and out to the internet. We have signed a contract last year to bring our sites up to a 10 gig capacity. That is a 10 times increase over what they currently have. So bandwidth concerns will be met for now and into the future with this long-term lease. We will be turning up our first 40 sites this June, with the remaining of them coming online shortly thereafter. That brings me into the third leg of what the network is made up of, is the internet access. Since about 2016, we have been doubling our capacity every year on our internet access. This continues on with this new bid that we have just awarded. That is going to bring us to 200 gigs of aggregated links, so that's resiliency that we've never had before with our prior company. So now we'll have 2 active links, so if one goes down, we can continue on with business functions as needed. Let's see. So within the internet, that also will allow us to scale up to 400, so we will meet our capacity needs into the near future. Cybersecurity and business continuity. I'm going to keep this very brief because I do not like to speak of exact products, but we are layering the approaches of security as new threats emerge and technologies are available. This includes denial of service preventions, intrusion preventions and detections, endpoint response mechanisms. We've recently migrated from a legacy backup system that's giving us more data protection, more alerting if there's any data corruption or malicious code that is being run on it. It also puts us in a position to leverage cloud technologies for business continuity or disaster recovery efforts as we continue to look through and migrate away from our legacy applications that Dr. Weeks initially pointed out.
Thank you. As we've moved forward, one of the things that's rapidly expanded in our world in education is we have moved from just physical learning spaces to add in additional digital learning spaces. And one of the things we need to make sure we're doing during that time or while students are using these digital spaces is that we're protecting them and providing the same safe environment that we provide in our classrooms and in our hallways. To do that, we're bringing a new item to the board on the 18th for Gaggle. that will allow us to monitor and use machine learning software to actually review content in our district provided spaces. So Microsoft 365, Canvas, Teams, to make sure that we're in the event of crisis where we have students that are maybe posting information about their own mental health, that we're having that kind of leading information about those, and we can get these alerts to the correct staff within the district to help provide services and to protect those students. This is a kind of an area where we've been missing out in the last couple of years. As we've expanded to this, the use of these environments have expanded well beyond kind of what we've been able to do and monitor on our own. So this is kind of an exciting thing, and there'll be more information about that soon as we get more prepared with that board agenda item. The next piece focuses on our classroom technology standards, and this has been something that's in the works for about the last 2 years. It's a partnership between IT, academic services, professional development, to kind of begin building out or bring our classroom technology up to current standards and start to build a capacity to move beyond just the basics. We are starting, and Chris is going to kind of fill in the rest of it, but we're talking about basically building a plan that would guide administration on how to use technology in their school, how to model technology for their teachers in the classroom, help provide a kind of menu of items that they would select from to build their own capacity to the standard. It looks at how do we create and change our instructional practices to bring them up to this modern technology, and then how do we build this standard throughout the district so that as teachers move, which we know they do, regardless of where they're at, the technology that's in that classroom that they're teaching with, they're familiar with. There's no extra training of which school am I teaching in my elementary, in my middle. We're building that classroom technology. That standard covers about 6 different areas, from instructional devices, so these are your student devices that are in the classroom, your display technology that's in the front of the classroom and how teachers connect to that display, things like device storage, how are those laptops stored so that they're safe and secure, classroom audio enhancement so that any student in the classroom, regardless of where they're sitting, is able to hear that teacher clearly, collaborative learning, so things like Microsoft 365. We don't work in a space where I necessarily sit in the room with everybody that I'm working with. We need to make sure our students are prepared to do that same thing as they leave our classrooms. And then the last piece, working with operations to make sure the physical space can handle this new technology that we're bringing in, everything from the infrastructure that Scott referenced to things like power, charging, all of those areas.
Okay, good morning, everyone. What we put together is a group of schools to begin this process with, to bring them up to the classroom technology standard and allow for us to create scalability so that principals, as they begin to meet that standard outside of this initial group, will begin to have something to lean on to be able to understand maybe how things went. There are 2 groups of schools in this. There's a showcase school group and a pilot school group. All of them will be brought up to the classroom technology standards, but the showcase schools will serve as a place to explore newer technology. So things that we can test out and try and see if they're viable to be expanded out to the entire district, or they're things that maybe don't have the impact that we need, that we're looking for them to have. Things like AR, virtual reality. So instead of spending a lot of funds on putting those into classrooms, we'll be able to test those in 3 schools and be able to then move forward and see how they work with that. In addition, these schools were chosen, and the criteria we used to choose those is in your packet, but they were chosen through discussions with leadership, through regional superintendents, through Superintendent Davis, as well as other people around our district, to make sure this represented a wide swath of what our district is, what level of technology they have, and it can be ensured to be scalable. And as we go through the process, we can make sure that the information is viable as we move forward with the rest of the schools in our district. So I want you to look at these schools as not just, maybe not the end, or it's not just these schools in isolation. This is really the beginning of developing a process for our schools and sites to meet the standards and understand how to use that technology in instruction. So as always, professional development, that's my wheelhouse, and that's where the rubber hits the road on a lot of things and how we can work through that. And we've isolate that down into three audiences: our administrative and leadership group, which would be administrators at the site going through training, understanding how to align technology to academic goals. So thinking of technology less as just something on the wall or something in a hand, but more pedagogically like any other resource. How do we use it, and how do we make sure it's relevant to the lesson that's being taught at the time? And how can we also coach and support our teachers in that end? How can we help them to use that as administrators? Obviously, teachers as well, they'll need training on how to do that, how to integrate it into the lessons when it makes sense. That would be a big part of our training plan, as well as coaches to understand that we don't have defined technology coaches. And almost to be honest, like, of course, that would be nice, but it's bigger than that, right? We want to have reading coaches, math coaches, teachers, everybody to be able to have that understanding and be able to apply that to their specific subject area and be able to, help teachers to put that into practice. Additional training and support will be put in for district staff as well to make sure that the guides that they're building, the materials that they're doing, and as they're going out and supporting teachers, they understand from a pedagogical standpoint what are ways to effectively use technology and be able to give examples to that. Now, to talk about the district, this is a lot of schools. We have a lot of people to train with that, and as such, we've enlisted through ESSER funds an RFP to have a training partner. That RFP will come to you on the May 9th board meeting. It's been through, and we have a vendor to do that. But to form a partnership to make sure that we have the capacity to really make this meaningful, make sure training is relevant and is effective for teachers, and that we can scale it across the district. So as more schools begin to meet the technology standard outside this 22, we're able to make sure they have on-time training and on-time support as we go through. So talking a little bit about scalability, the plan is to have the 22 schools in front of you in the fall to be up to the classroom technology standard, for the administrators to gone through and align their instructional goals with the technology that's coming into their school, and to be able to have the training and begin that. Now from that, we'll be getting feedback from them, going through feedback protocols and evaluation protocols, so that as more schools meet the standard, we can scale that throughout the 23-24 school year, looking to get that moving into the beginning of the 24 school year. And then as we move forward from that, moving into the future and onwards, all newly constructed schools will meet the classroom technology standard, and the principal of that school will have a real blueprint for how to, in their opening and how moving forward, to use that technology to leverage it in instruction.
One of the things I talked about earlier was the legacy applications. So the two legacy applications that were in question that were mentioned by both the Cinero report and the Gibson report was our ERP, our Enterprise Resource Planning Software, and our Student Information System, our SIS. So both of those applications were identified as needing to be upgraded, and the recommendation was to move to something that was more of a cloud-based or off-the-shelf environment that the district would not be reliant upon heavily customizing as we move forward, in order to ensure that we maintained a level of currency with the products. Both of those systems are currently in process, and I will give you an update a little bit about where we are on the timeline. So just to set the stage, is we have in 2017 is when the district identified the replacement for the Lawson ERP. 2018 is when they started the identification of the replacement for the Student Information System. COVID-19 obviously interrupted a lot of things, and these two projects were definitely interrupted by that as the district shifted to try to ensure that our students had the appropriate educational ability to continue on with any of the academic endeavors that they were moving forward with. In 2021, we really started pushing both projects to try to ensure that we maximize the benefits for these projects, and really looking at how do we bring these to a successful completion. 2022, last summer, we actually went live with the gradebook portion of the Student Information System, and that ties in with our Canvas learning management system. So that was really the first entry into us making progress with and implementing in a production capacity any of the newer systems. We are looking at a 2023 later this year, August 20th to be exact. That is our current go-live date for moving forward with the Infor product. So our ERP, we are looking at going live on the new ERP in August of this year. When examining the student information system, knowing that there were a number of challenges that would be impacting the classroom from both a teacher perspective, an administrative perspective, and potentially a student perspective, we made a decision to move the go live back by 1 year to ensure that we were able to capture all of the specific components within the student information system that really would be required for a successful completion. And we think it was most critical to bring this forward as a success rather than do this in a partial implementation and then worry about fixing any of the challenges or fixing any of the problems that were identified while this was being used in production. So this is a better solution for moving forward. And then we know that even going live with Synergy, and I can say the same for Infor, there are going to be associated applications and products that and processes that will be identified as we move forward. So while these will not be necessarily significant undertakings like the ERP and SIS projects themselves, we will continue to build on both of those platforms, and that'll be coming in the 24, 25, 26 timelines. Last thing I wanted to talk about is just a little bit about sustainability and funding. So one of the things the district utilizes heavily, relies upon for its infrastructure funding is the use of E-rate dollars. E-rate is split into two categories. Category 1, which covers our internet access and anything that's from the outside into our buildings, and Category 2, which is really all of the infrastructure components that are inside of the buildings themselves. We qualify as a district for an 80% discount rate. So for us, and we just brought to the board, the last board meeting, we brought a Cat 1 and a Cat 2 item to the board, so we will be moving forward on those. We also relied heavily on ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 dollars to move a lot of the technology initiatives forward and to ensure that we were able to bring the infrastructure in the classrooms, especially up to where we needed to be successful for both of our teachers and for our students. And then the last thing is we relied heavily on ECF, which is the Emergency Communication Fund, and that was that provided us a lot of devices for both students and for teachers in the classrooms. So we supplemented what the district was spending through capital funding and through ESSER dollars with ECF, and that provided a significant number of devices for our classrooms. One of the other things that we're working on is I will continue to work with finance to identify a lot of our peers within the state utilize capital funding to support enterprise-wide items. We know that implementation for the ERP has been supported through the use of capital funding, but a lot of our peers within the state do use it for capital funding for items like our student information system, their ERPs, their email systems, anything that really impacts the enterprise, which in this case the entirety of the district. Those are items that are potentially able to be leveraged utilizing capital dollars. So we'll continue to explore that to try to maximize our spend on capital and minimize the amount of general fund dollars that we expend as a district. We also are working on continuing to consolidate licensing of various applications that have been either one-offs purchased by schools, smaller departments, divisions. For us, we're looking at how do we maximize our dollars and afford economies of scale by pulling all those licensing back into a single consolidated licensing model and then purchasing through dollars on that so we can maximize what that impact is. And then we continue, as Mr. Holt said before, we continue to work on how we evaluate with academic service what the technology, what the impact is in the classroom, and we want to continue to make sure that we understand how we need to move forward so that we can maximize that impact to our students and our teachers as well as our employees. And with that, I will conclude our presentation. And
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, and we'll begin. Mr. Porter, we'll begin with member. Yeah, I'll just go. Okay, Member Gray.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, very, very intelligent techies up there, and Dr. Thomas Weeks. I have three questions or three areas, and I'll soon run out of time, no doubt, so I'll get back in the queue. But first, board members are probably not having a copy of the 2017 Gibson Report recommendations, which when I was in office, that was a big impetus for the change to begin with. And I don't think they do have a copy of that. I also am reminded that the strategic plan, Dr. Weeks, when we have Objective 3, every one of those IDs do fall under in this booklet. And as you know, the strategic plan was adopted and voted on by the entire board. So with those two areas of background, I definitely think the challenge is appropriate for this board to meet because, we are so behind. That's putting it very mildly. But, and our kids are getting behind. That's the most important part of the equation. Parents also, we have to be reminded. My questions are, my concerns, when we deal with Spectrum, and Superintendent Davis, we've had so many hiccups. Are they able to handle the challenge, that challenge is plural, that we are looking at with the with all the wide area networks and the and this all the different types of networking we're doing, community networks, school networks, etc.
Yeah, through the chair, my understanding we were moving away to go to a new provider, and that was just approved from the last board meeting. And as Scott talked about, we are moving from 140 gigabytes within our infrastructure in our school. We're moving up to over 200 gigabytes, and that's just going to have greater speed, greater consistency for our students to be able to interact with any learning platforms that we have, or just dive into our any of our software or platforms that they have to interact with their classroom. So from that perspective, not only did we bring to the board a new provider to be able to assist, but we also cut that cost by close over $400,000 as well and getting a better product.
Okay, so we got a yes on that.
Yes, ma'am.
That's relief right there. The sustainability, and I know, Dr. Weeks, we talked about this often, one-to-one, it's a great thing. We have to have it. So many curriculums tell the teacher that you have to have the online devices, but we now are looking at the House Bill 1, whatever where students will be traveling from our schools, perhaps to a private school, to a charter school. So how are we capturing the expenditures that and thank you, Superintendent Davis, since COVID, we put a lot of money into these one-on-one, these devices. How are we capturing the cost as students will be moving around? Is it a school's responsibility, the principals, or how are we keeping track of all these devices?
Through the chair, we have inventory for every one of our devices. While it's one-on-one, the accessibility will be in our infrastructure, in our brick-and-mortar schools. So if there's a need for a student to check that unit out, they'll have to work internally with the principal to determine and sign a number of agreement forms for that to release out. And as a student transitions to a different learning platform, that material, that unit or equipment will have to come back to us, to all the district schools that we have and that we run. So if a child elects to go to a private institution or they elect to go to a charter school, the inventory that we have is only for district managed schools within our school district, and we'll get all that inventory back. If not, there goes a debt list that we continue to generate within our district. Whether a kid loses a textbook, a kid loses a computer, that debt list has to be solved and has to be taken care of prior to that individual receiving a diploma from our school district.
That ought to do it right there. But, you know, the point is, when you talk about sustainability, the ESSER, as we all know, is a one-time, large faucet of money. When that goes down, which it is, we have to think about how we're going to upkeep it. And that goes to the question again, Dr. Weeks or any of you, when we have, say, Plant High School, a tech there has to travel to 2 or 3 different schools to keep fixing these computers. What is our maintenance plan to afford our schools? I know you have soon, you're going to train the district teachers perhaps, but how is that going to remove for lack of better words, the breaking down of many of these computers?
Yes, ma'am, through the chair. One of the things that we're doing in relying on newer technology and looking at providing replacements for these technologies every 4 to 5 years, what we're doing is we're maintaining warranties with the device manufacturers. So we're not self-servicing a lot of these items. We are maintaining a cache of spare devices at each site, so that if a device goes bad, we will be able to swap that out, so that a student can be, or a student doesn't have to be without a device for an extended period of time. And then it's up to our technicians to either get it back to the Tech Operations Center to ensure that it goes back out to the vendor to be replaced through warranty, or if it's something that we repair in-house, it is done over in Silo Bend at the TOC. So for us, the critical piece on this is maintaining that life cycle of devices. The problem that we ran into, and this is where a lot of the support came in to question, is we had a significant amount of older devices. The older devices were slow. They had hardware failures. There was a number of problems attributed to the age. We saw that once we started to replace these devices, the number of significant failures that we had dropped steadily. So for us, and as part of the sustainability, and if you look on page 40 of the presentation within the book, we outline what that sample life cycle cost would be, so that we have an idea of, if we wanted to try to levelize that spend and maintain this life cycle, we know what it's going to cost us roughly per year. And again, by doing that, that is going to help us to ensure that students and teachers have a viable device in their hands when needed.
And last thing I'd say that to piggyback off what Dr. Weeks spoke about, one of the things we have to do is figure out, once we get to a point where we can, is maybe put supplements into identifying leadership techs at every one of our schools through teachers, training them, allowing them to lead it, but also being able to see how we can expand this initiative to students who want to go into the tech world. And for example, this summer, working with CareerSource to not only offer summer jobs to our students in certain areas, but expanding this to IT and allowing them to work and be trained during the summer, so when they transition to this next school year, bless you, that they can continue to be assistants and potentially earn credits to be in credentials to be able to work on laptops, printers, whatever it may be, to be able to assist additional techs within our district.
Okay, I've got my warning signs that I'm done talking for right now. So we'll go back into the queue. Thank you, Superintendent Davis, Dr. Weeks, and wonderful staff.
Thank you, Member Gray, and I'll put you back into queue. Member Perez?
Thank you. So the first question I'm going to come out the gate with is, beside, you have the legacy data protection, which archives data, correct? Am I correct? And keeps it secure? Old data? Okay, what system is being put in place to ban the use of VPNs on school devices and to bypass the school firewall?
So currently we have content filters that block VPN traffic from student use. We make policy adjustments if there's a need for that. Again, but that is handled on an agent that is on the device itself, and that is what's blocking.
Okay, because a lot of our students continue to bypass those firewalls. With our students, especially having younger and younger students connected to technology. Now, I think in elementary school, a lot of our kids have the iPhones. What is being put in place? Because I see here that you're educating the staff. And I'm speaking also from the place of the cybersecurity task force that I run. What's being put in place to also educate the parents, because we are sending technology home with students. Let me have you answer the second part of that. But how many students right now have our laptops or technology available to them to take home? About approximately how many?
I don't have, every device is available for a child to take home if they are needed. I do not have a number of how many principals have worked. We rely on the local administration to make that
Okay.
qualification, but I don't know what came out.
And along with this, I just wanted to find out, how are we educating parents who are receiving these, these laptops at home, as far as how to safeguard their students on these devices, especially our monolingual parents who are not English speaking?
Through the chair. So one of the things, if a student does take a district-owned device home, we have applications that protect from allowing students to go to sites such as pornography, general adult themes. So this is part of the compliance that that we're required to maintain. It's SIPA compliance, so it's the Children's Internet Protection Act. That is a requirement for E-rate funding. So all of the district devices for students are district internet has to be SIPA compliant. So for us, as Mr. Gaffner mentioned earlier, we do have an application that sits on the devices that are district owned that will prevent users from going to less than desirable sites. I'll just say it that way.
Okay, so our devices are equipped with these firewalls that these students cannot get around, even though they're trying to get around these.
It's an integrated content filter and monitoring application.
All right, and I'm going to get back in the queue, please.
Okay, thank you. Member Vaughn?
Thank you. First of all, thank you for this. It is very intensive and thorough, so I know a lot of work went into it. Also, thank you for the policies that are attached. I appreciate that. I know that you've advocated for that, Member Rendon. I'd asked for that previously, so I'm really glad that helps us keep in mind the policies that we're enacting that go along with these workshops. Also, I'm grateful for the synergy hold-off that we identified that, it might be challenging to implement. There have been so many changes going on recently. I know our teachers and staff will appreciate one less change and something that might be complicated, as well as being intentional about realizing other counties use capital funding and looking at funding and, making sure that we're being as aggressive as possible to guard our general fund. So I appreciate all that came out of the presentation so far. Something I wanted a little more clarity on, and I think Member Gray touched on this, was through our internet provider, when we have internet outages, that's a barrier for our students, especially during testing time, to be able to access the technology. And I know that you said we've changed providers and that there's supposed to be some kind of resiliency. So if one link goes out or one access to the internet goes out, that we have a secondary one. Am I understanding that right? Because that's a huge concern coming out of our classrooms right now.
That is correct. We have two redundant, resilient links in two different locations. One will be coming out of the ROSAC building and one coming out of the TOC data centers.
So that will help when the internet goes down.
If the internet goes down, if there's a problem in one of the paths on one side, the other side will take over or continue taking that traffic. It will be at a reduced rate, but it will still be enough to handle our testing needs. if it comes to that, then we have to come more aggressive on the content filtering or blocking of non-essential traffic. But yes, we have built the resiliency into this news network.
Okay, I appreciate that because, again, that's a huge concern when we have so much testing on computers. If we don't have access to the internet during that, that's a giant barrier. The other thing that, I just wanted to touch on is I noticed when you went over the schools that we were going to do pilots and showcase on, originally we had talked about one in every district, and now it seems like we've narrowed it down to 3 districts that are going to be showcased and not pilots. And, I was just confused about that because that's not what I originally thought, and I have to admit I'm disappointed not to see any in District 5 when we talk about District 5 and making sure that we're being equitable and, in our marginalized community specifically, to see that 3 of them, were one of them not being in District 5 I find to be extremely disappointing. Can you tell me more about that?
I'll let Mr. Hart and Mr. Holt talk about the selection process and how those schools are identified.
So first, I'll address the number because I think it's important to understand how process flow works and how we're able to build this out. And remember that this is a process for us to learn to be able to then scale to the next step, to be able to scale to the next step. So when you begin to expand beyond 3, an elementary, a middle, and a high school, it becomes much more complicated. At that point, you're doing a full-blown implementation rather than creating a small learning environment to be able to learn the process, develop a solid process that then moves out to the rest of that group, those 19 schools that then are spread beyond or through all of the districts. As far as the selection of those schools, we worked with regional superintendents, we worked with the superintendent, we worked with district leadership to, and the criteria is listed. What slide is the criteria? If you look on slide 17 in your handout, you'll look at the information that we used or the criteria that we used to look through and to help develop or decide on that school list. So it was not to exclude in any group. It was used to identify who are going to be the schools that we're able to get good feedback from their leadership, from their teachers, so that then it's easier for us to move on to that next level and expand out to that next level. So it was intentionally kept small, and at that point, I don't believe district was even looked at as far as that criteria because we were focusing on the leadership, where are they currently sitting at in capacity for one-to-one devices, so that we're less of a financial impact for that first group, so that we can get these schools up to speed quickly and start learning so that we can then expand out to the rest of that 19.
Which leads me, just from that explanation, to think that District 5 has less one-to-one device access, which is problematic. But I have other questions, so I'll allow Member Washington to discuss that. The next question that I have is, I know, Dr. Weeks, we had talked about the removal of computer labs, that you didn't envision that as a model going forward. And I think some of the concerns that I have with the technology is that while the board is getting a good education about it, it's not necessarily filtering down to our school sites. And we've talked about that previously, and we have a lot of PTAs who are raising money and then looking at their budgets to allocate spending for that next year. And without an understanding of what our plan is at the school site level, a lot of them are passing, their funds that they could be using and allocating for other things, for things that it sounds like is in our plan already. And so, I know at my son's PTA, they were looking at the computer lab, which seems to be a model that you seem to think we're going to be moving away from as we have one-to-one devices. We won't be as reliant on that. So can you talk a little bit more about that and how we're educating at the school level so, again, PTAs and other decisions around technology can be made thoughtfully?
Yes, ma'am, through the chair. One of the things that we're looking at, and I don't want to say specifically that we don't believe in the lab model. However, one of the things that we're doing is we're providing mobile carts filled with laptops that can be utilized anywhere throughout any of the school sites. So as we continue to deploy these at all the school sites, schools can take advantage of utilizing those mobile labs as they were, put them in whatever room that they need them in, whatever space is available to them, so that they're not stuck to one physical location. So that's one of the things that we're looking at. As far as the device counts, what we're considering one-to-one is, so if a school has 800 FTE, what we're looking at doing is basically we will have at least one device per student so at least 800 devices. And then we're also going to have roughly anywhere between a 5, generally around a 5, but up to a 10% additional amount of devices that are in the schools that are available to be used anytime. One of the problems that we had found is that schools, and I don't want to sound negative about this, but schools were really hoarding devices in the sense that a lot of schools were taking devices, putting them in a closet so that they were only available and they were pulled out during testing periods. What we're stressing to all of the principals, to all of the educators that we speak to, is when we put devices in your school sites, use them. Please use them. Use them every day if you can. We need to ensure that the devices get used for their intended purposes. If we have school sites where they are requesting additional mobile carts, we are evaluating that, and we are supplying carts and laptops where we can. But we want to make sure that all of the schools have at least enough devices and a small additional amount for repairs and replacements before we really start mass deploying of any other devices. And as far as PTSA funds, what we're looking at doing is anytime that we hear from a site administrator that they are looking at spending those types of dollars, we encourage, and I've been reaching out to all the principals, we encourage that they ask us right now what's the best way that they can spend those dollars. Some schools, they're using them to purchase devices. Some schools are using them to purchase interactive panels. Some schools are using them to purchase mobile carts. It really depends what we have identified for each of those school sites, and we try to work with the administrator, individually to ensure that we meet the needs of their specific site.
Thank you. And then I just have two more things I'll touch on, and I'll try to be brief because I know other members are waiting to ask questions and get back in the queue. The next thing I wanted to say that I was surprised I didn't see more about was the digital divide. Because as we know, many of our students have to go home and they have to do iReady or other programs that are accessible in the classroom, but sometimes, especially if they're special needs and they're taken out for other, for other one-on-one opportunities, they don't have the opportunity necessarily to do all of their required online curriculum in the classrooms. And so, it's a struggle when they get out. Students who have access to the internet and who have devices at home, they can easily follow up on that or make sure they get their time but for our students who don't have that, I haven't seen a lot in here addressing that, and I know it's a complex problem, but even talking about, maybe opening up a few computer labs after hours where students can come if they need to go ahead and take advantage of that. Or when we talk about all this repurposing, opening up a computer lab outside the library where students can access, or if we're talking about being able to expand our remote internet access to the neighborhood so that students can take advantage of that if they live closely. One thing I'd like to see as we move forward and we plan out our technology plan is addressing the digital divide to make sure that we really do have equity in our technology going forward. And you don't have to answer that now. That's just something that I would like to see going forward. And then finally, the last thing I want to touch on, and I think Member Perez kind of talked about this, is she's been very active with our internet task force and identifying things that are dangerous for our staffs and our students and our family members. When I go into my schools, that's one of the biggest concerns they have right now. And I don't know as a district or if it's a policy thing that we need to come up with as a school board, but moving forward, making sure that we have training for our families, for our students about responsible internet use and what that looks like, I think should be something that we should be talking about as part of our technology plan. And it's one thing, even in school when we're talking about airdrop and all the other things, it sounds like a lot of the challenges, especially when we talk about cyberbullying, which is policy in here, stems from, not really understanding, especially when it comes to parents, right? Accessing and monitoring what their students are on and making sure they're reading things. So I'm just wondering if I missed it, because it was deep. If we have something going forward that's going to talk about or address some of these concerns. And that's my questions. I'll get back in the queue. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Vaughn. Did you?
So one of the things I would like to say is just the fact that when it comes to training or anything like that for parents, or families in general, that is something that we can do a better job at, and we really have to we've been trying to identify what the needs within the school sites are, and it's taken us a long time to get to the point where we're at currently. We have really gained a lot of ground on recovering from the technological debt that we've incurred over the past decade plus. So for us, as we move forward, we know that most students probably have a cell phones. A lot of them have computers or other devices at home, and we would want to work with, and this is something where I think we would need guidance, and obviously, Member Perez's, her cyber initiative, that is something where we can share some information, but we would need a little bit of guidance in terms of what would be the best way to move this forward, and how would we have the greatest amount of impact. We already work with, and this sort of leads into the previous question that you had, we already work with the Hillsborough County Library System in terms of devices that go out to students. We work with them on their ECF application so that they have devices available to students. Their devices, again, have filtering on them, so students are protected in that manner, but students really don't understand, or parents don't understand, how the device that they purchased for their student, how their student can actually access, materials that aren't necessarily, wholesome, or conducive to the learning environment for the students. So we'll have to work with, a number of constituents to try to figure out what's the best way to get this across, how we could implement a program as such. And what I can do is, we can put that down as a to-do item, and I could report back to the board regularly on that, just to let you know where we are.
Thank you, Dr. Weeks. Member Washington?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And also, Dr. Weeks, thank you for the presentation. I had a couple of questions here. Something didn't sit well with me when we were talking about the technology showcase. That wasn't a good answer, what I was looking for. But I know that has something to do with the regional superintendent, so you might want to talk to him about that, because it looks like we are not involved at all in the technology. And a lot of times when people see this, they'll say, well, they don't ever do anything for District 5. And that's something we have to look at. That's why I'm the representative for District 5, because we have to look at that to make sure. And also, I was looking at the internet, and it's great. It's great. We have computers, devices for everyone. But like Member Vaughn said, everyone doesn't have the accessibility to use those at home. So I would like to see maybe making some kind of arrangement, maybe with Spectrum or so forth, so those kids can have internet, because it's no good with the device and you don't have the internet. So you need to have the internet to go with the device. I think that's important. I don't know, we might be able to work that out with Spectrum so they can get something going to help those digital divide out. Also, and this just something you make notes on. You don't have to give me any answers now. Something else I was looking at too. What happens in the next 5 years when all this run out? Did it stay for 5 years? You'll be back in front of the board. When would you have to be back in front of the board again?
Through the chair. So that is one of the reasons why, and I think it was slide 40, one of the reasons why I included what we see as the cost that we would need annually to move forward to ensure that we maintain the level of currency on the devices and applications that we're putting in place. It's not a small task. And this is one of the reasons why we got into the trouble that we did, is because there wasn't enough forethought placed on how critical technology is to supporting our schools and our students. So one of the things that we do need to do is identify how we continue to provide newer devices, newer applications, keep them moving on a rotating basis, leverage any discount structures such as E-rate where we can, leverage any grant funding that's available where we can. And one of the things that we will continue to do is look for alternative funding opportunities so that we can at least provide, hopefully some relief to the district's general fund and capital dollars when it comes to having to have this annual outlay. So we'll continue to work through that.
Okay, good, because we need to, I can see 4 or 5 years you back in front of the board again. We need 400 million or whatever you need. I'm just throwing out numbers. So we need to have stability there, and I think that stability is important because in the years past, I realized we were going to be involved in this some years ago when technology came into Hillsborough County public school system, because we barely had any technology. And once we came in the 70s or 80s or whatever, when we started technology, I recall Dr. Hamilton said this is going to be very expensive to upkeep with technology. And somewhere we lost the continuity to keep the upkeep. And once you lose it, then you're in the bind. You're in the bind. You're up the creek. And so I just don't want the same thing to happen if I'm on the board or not the next 5 years. Somebody, well, we need this, we need that. So we need to have a great plan in place so we can continue to understand it and know about it. And last but not least, a lot of this success for money was because of ESSER funds. We had a lot of money because of the donation, because of the ESSER funds coming into the district. So now we have to figure out a way how we're going to survive after the ESSER funds. Because when they're gone, they're gone. Then we got to renew, refresh, whatever we have to do with our technology. So it's just something I just want you to keep in mind. And I'll get back in the queue again, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you, Member Washington. Member Hahn?
Member Combs. Didn't you used to have Memorial Middle School?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mendenhall Elementary? Okay. So, I know that those aren't District 5 schools now, but those families probably live embedded in your district. Yeah, because I saw that and I was like, wait a minute. Is it under the wrong column? And yes, it's, technology is expensive and, we're never going to be done with it. It's how many times just in our personal lives, we refresh our technology in our homes and the phones we carry and the computers and laptops we use. It gets antiquated very quickly. So I would imagine, the ESSERs definitely gave us this big acceleration in some ways. But now looking forward, much like all the other divisions, you have to build out probably this 10-year financial plan to make sure, like Member Washington said, we keep up with the times and we don't find ourselves so far behind the 8 ball like we were when I came onto the board. And I really appreciate you using those audits as your starting point to get this conversation going and figure out a plan. Because, when you look at all of this, it is huge. And thank you very much for putting this comprehensive notebook together. And I appreciate that. And I think as we move through this in the next couple of years, updating pieces of this would be helpful for us, But looking at this really through a student lens, and that's what I really did. And I tried to think about, everything you did and are doing, how it directly or indirectly impacts students and student success. And so, for me, digital literacy is a big piece of the success of everything you've talked about. And you even said that yourselves, you can put all the devices you want in schools and make them as fancy as possible. But if people don't know how to use them, if stakeholders, students, families, teachers, staff, administrators, then it's the student who really loses out. And so I like the one-on-one devices. I think if we're going to be competitive in this day and age and how education is becoming more and more competitive, technology is a big part of that. It's a big part of preparing students, whether they go off and, go into college or go into a career. It's important as a parent, to know so they can access resources that digital literacy piece. And it's certainly important for our teachers and staff as we close that digital literacy or the digital gap, so that they are prepared to help us do that. That's not something you do with money, right? It's something you do with the infrastructure, to the devices, to the use of. And if we're going to close that gap, then you're going to have teachers that are embedding this in all of their instruction. So when you say every classroom can have a child with a device, I would hope that we get to a point where it is something that students use every day. But to do that, they also need to understand how to use the device in where it gives it educational value. And so, I'd like to see dollars invested in professional development in our teachers so that they can then close that gap with students. Students know, they know how to use a phone and search the internet on Google and play a video game. But really, teaching them how to use technology for educational value is very different, and it's a different set of skills. Are they ahead of the game? Yeah, because they don't have that fear of turning on the computer and all that. So, I'm appreciative of the investment in that. Families. So many of my board members brought out the point that, and we learned this through COVID, that there's this digital divide in our communities. And we worked really good with HEF. HEF has really been a great partner around filling that gap for access to the internet. And so maybe we need to revisit that partnership around that, to expand that, post-COVID, and make sure that that access is still in place. But I want to go back to the digital literacy piece. And, families are going to come in and out of our district at different points, and they can't always come to a site for training. So, if we could start to think about, through our professional development unit, around providing some webinars for families at very basic levels of, this is how you turn the computer on, this is how you charge it up, this is how you shut it down, this is how you care for it, this is who you call when you're having a problem. And then, Canvas, I've been very familiar with Canvas as a university professor. That's what we used. Once you understand it and use it, it can be of great benefit to teachers, students, and families. If parents understand how to utilize some of this, and they're going to be more connected to their child academically than they have before. Whether it's through understanding how to set their notifications around their students' grades or assignments. We're all busy, it's a great tool, but you have to know how to use it. So I think enhancing the professional development for families, then they'll understand the benefit of the financial dollars we're spending. It's a lot. I know it comes to the board, and it's not just $2 or $3 million. Sometimes it's $30, $40, $50 million. So, and you've done a great job creatively looking for different pockets of money to pull together, and I appreciate that. One of my first questions is, what percentage is technology of the capital budget? Because a lot of this I see moving forward is coming out of the capital side. So what percentage of you out of the overall capital budget are you?
Through the chair, I couldn't answer that specifically. I would have to work with Ms. Johnson to get you that specific answer. But that fluctuates, I believe, annually because, for instance, like the dollars for the Category 2, the network upgrade, the $36 million I brought to the board last week, that is something that only happens every 5 years. So it sort of ebbs and flows throughout the whole process. One of the things that I'm looking at doing is we need to try to level set or at least set an expectation, what an annualized cost would look like. And that's, the stuff that you refer to on page 40. That's how we were arriving at those numbers. So I couldn't give you a specific answer based off of a percentage, but I can work on getting that.
Yeah, because I think in going back to Mr. Washington's statements on, making sure we're financially secure in the future as, we come, we leave and new people come onto the board, that we don't want to get so far behind. We want to be able to secure that future because, the ESSER dollars do end. And so do you know, and you did say that how much comes out of each pot, but I guess what would be helpful for me is kind of seeing the percentage of investment out of general, a percentage of what we're spending from grants, a percentage to kind of see that whole pie come together, because I would imagine that, that's going to help you plan forward. We're seeing that an awful lot of money needed now because we were so far behind, and that's not to any of yours fault. That's just, something that we've never invested in heavily historically until now. But I think it's clear, that the future is technology. So, from a financial point, I just kind of like to see that as kind of a pie, like, how much is grant, how much are what's the percentage funding from each of the pots? The other thing that some of my colleagues already mentioned was cybersecurity. And so, I often get phone calls and reached out by constituents because they're really concerned about the protection of their child's information. And often when we contract with outside companies, there's access to that information. And I know we talk about how that's protected, but some of the concerns I hear, it's protected, but not at a very deep level. And, the last thing we want is for information to not just be, sold. Some people sell information, and we don't. We don't sell information, but, but also just the access to it. And so, whether they use it for research or whatever they're using it for, how are we protecting student information from that access?
Certainly, and you are correct in being concerned about it. That is a significant problem, especially with school-aged children. The selling of that data or acquisition of that data unlawfully. So one of the things that we do is all of our vendors that we work with, we do enter into data sharing agreements with them to ensure that, both sides are covered, identifying what the usage of that data looks like and identifying if there is any release of data, what the protocol is as we move forward for identification, remediation, any steps like that. And this is something that Mr. Gibson, works with quite a bit with IT and our partners. So while it's not foolproof, from a legal perspective, that's the best we can do there. One of the things that we do is we also evaluate what our partners are doing in terms of how secure are they making their data. So for instance, when we enter into an agreement with a large vendor that may be housing student data, we look at, have they performed any cybersecurity audits? What kind of scoring have they had based off of specific sets of criteria? Because the more comfortable we feel about them being tested regularly about access to their data, we think that shows that they are putting a good faith effort into ensuring that our students are protected and they understand the value of what that data is. So we try to, wherever we can, look at all of the resources available for past security incidents, any security testing that vendors go through, and we continue to work with all of our vendors to ensure that they're up to speed on that.
So how does it impact us and the security of the data and the legality around the agreement that we enter with a company when that company is in the United States, but is owned by an international organization. How does that impact the agreement?
So I can't speak to the legality of it. However, I will say, depending on where the organization is based. So, for instance, the European Union has far stricter regulations surrounding data in general than what the United States has. So I wouldn't be as concerned about data that's potentially, or a company that's potentially based in Europe, based off of some of the regulations that they generally have to follow. But again, I can't speak to the specific legality of it.
There's no like pass-through door that they can share data. I just, because I know there are some companies that they are located in Canada or Europe and.
We can look at that issue and make sure that we're covered on that.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Hahn. Member Rendon?
Okay. Y'all know it's coming. This is a lot of information, and I'm very appreciative of it, but I'm going to take this to a different level because I think this is two very different. We've got a lot going on in this book. One of which is student services, direct classroom and participation, direct school issues. Then we've got student systems, which, well, actually three, actually. Then we've got student systems, and then we've got our overall Lawson and where we're at with that. So I'm going to divide that up because I think each of them own their own ownership, and we have enough questions within each of them, and I don't want to not give priority to one of them. So last I knew, when the board approved additional funding for additional staff to be a push to get this, I believe it's Lawson, right, over the edge, and spring break was going to be it, and it's done. Is it done?
No, ma'am, it is not completed.
Okay, so that's my first thing. And I did ask and say that I do not want this to be the endless bottomless pit of funding of when it's going to get done, because it was on the books since 2017. And we approved money to get that push because we said if it wasn't spring break, it was going to be Thanksgiving. So now we're going to be in a whole different budget for Thanksgiving than we are now. And did we use that approved funds for that push?
We continue to use the funds for the push. In reviewing where we are with both our HR partners and with the folks in finance, we came up with a timeline that works best for all parties within the district in terms of an actual go-live, a rollout. We looked at ensuring that we minimize the amount of manual entry of data, because that can be problematic and that can lead to mistakes, concerns. Whenever there's a human involved in data entry, there's potential concerns there. We want to make sure from a compliance perspective, we have all of the data moved over as by process by the application, rather than relying on human intervention. We want to get that in place. We decided that breaking after the end of the fiscal year for this year is the best way to ensure that we meet compliance in terms of closing our financial year for the year, as well as looking at it from an HR perspective. There's a significant number of events that would have to manually be entered in by HR staff if we didn't push everything back to the August 20th date, which is what I'm speaking of now. And we were talking to the tune of tens of thousands of items that would have to be potentially manually entered in.
Okay, so let me go back to my question. Did we use the funds that we approved that will end June 30th?
They have not been expended currently. There's still about $900,000 of those funds remaining. Those will continue to be spent through June as we move forward. And then as we are moving forward with the elongated timeline, there will be an additional expenditure needed.
Okay, so the reason that we had to give the big push and spend the additional money was because we needed additional staff, and we needed the spring break because the students, our staff, were gone. August the 20th could not be, unless you did August the 10th, a busier week in this school system. So how is that different than spring break when we had no staff? And that was the whole reason for the funding.
So the short answer on this is that the district wasn't prepared to move forward. Even with the additional push, one of the challenges that we have is the district, and I'm not speaking just from IT, I'm talking about the district in general. This encompasses finance, this encompasses HR, a number of other areas within the district. We are all very single-threaded. I don't want to say short-staffed, but we are very thinly staffed in many of these areas. Individuals are working a considerable amount of extra effort to ensure that we move forward. We brought in additional resources through Third Stage Consulting, as well as utilizing our partner with Infor, to try to ensure that we would be successful in hitting that spring break deadline. However, from a district perspective, our employees were not able to complete the tasks that were required. And this is just a simple matter of the fact that they had other jobs that they needed to perform.
So again, I go back to the fact that how are we even remotely possibly thinking that the second week of school, when we are at the heightened amount of time of schedule changes, teacher changes, student changes, we're hiring new staff, adjusting to our, like HR is beyond overwhelmed that first month of school on top of everything else. How are we going to do it then? It's not adding up to me on how it was needed so desperately during spring break when we had no staff to now we're going to do it in the busiest time of the year. It's just not making any sense.
Understood. And one of the things, we worked with our partners with Third Stage and Infor, myself, Dr. Whalen, Ms. Johnson, we all came up with what was the best plan moving forward to ensure success. Bottom line is we want to be successful in this project and in completing it. We want to be able to hit all of our targets from a perspective of a good rollout, have quality data moving forward, and we want to minimize the risk to the district as we cut over to a new system. While I understand that the start of the school year may not seem like an opportune time to do this, it meets specific criteria based off of the end of the fiscal year, as is required by Ms. Johnson and the finance team, to ensure that they can successfully complete their year-end closeout, as well as it gives Dr. Whalen's team the opportunity to utilize the new system to actually automate all of the tasks that they would have to be doing manually over the summer. So from a school perspective, we will be training individuals prior to them going live in this. We will ensure that we can give them the best amount of data possible so that they can be successful when they go live. We do know it's definitely crunch time. Start of the school year is just crazy from every department's perspective. But we felt this still, even considering the changes that are going to be happening, this was still the best opportunity that we had to be successful in moving the project forward.
And I want to say this is not our student information system, so this is completely, HR financial driven, and everything else from SIS will be continued to implement due to the fact that we're not transitioned to Synergy. Understanding, though, there will be movements related to personnel as we look at the 10-day count, implementation, and all those elements. And if there's a sooner date that we can get to arrive, we will. But these are going to be running parallels as much as we can, and as soon as we can release the other one, we will.
Okay, at the end of the day, my bottom line is I asked if this was it. I was told it was it. We're now coming back saying we're going to need additional funding. We think it's going to be it, and now we don't need a period of time where there's no teachers and no staff. We can do it anytime. And so I'm really getting a lot of misinformation or contradicting information. So I'm concerned about the process of making this entire change. So I think if you're going to bring anything before myself, I can't only speak for myself, I'm going to need a commitment because we've put multiple dollars over the course of the last 5 years. We put an extensive amount of money this year to get this over the edge because it was told that it's going to crumble. We don't have the parts. We have to get it done. And yet we push it again. So there's just a concern that this becomes the money pit before it's taken care of. And that is not the way we want to move forward. So when it comes to, we need to make sure that if you're going to bring anything before myself, again, we need a solid commitment that this is going to happen, because I'm even more concerned at your timing now, because if it fails at that period of time, we have a much bigger problem, and we have a problem with staff. And that is one of our biggest concerns at that time of year. So that's on that system. Now, let's go to the student part of that. Again, tons of information. You know, we have 240 schools. So when we look at this moving forward and taking a sampling and you know, getting the first startup, we have 5 very diverse districts, hands down. We have a diversity amongst all 5 from different layers. Even within District 4, I could say I have a diversity from one end of the county to the other, right? So I think I would encourage the plan to start off with 5 and not 3, and 1 from each of the 5 districts, therefore representing a full sampling of all of the thing. If you really want a sampling of how this is going to work, then I don't think 5 out of 240 is going to give you too much data. It clearly is going to be enough that you've got 5 principals, that's okay. You know, I think 5 would be a reasonable amount of time to work with, so that would be my recommendation. The other thing is we see ESSER dollars going away, right? And we also see the need for replenishing and replacing of equipment. Have we investigated at all working with different types of people that if we purchase the equipment, they then supply our ongoing support, our ongoing technology, our ongoing tech, so that we can level out some of the funding we're getting? Have we investigated that? I know we're doing a lot of in-house and then a lot of purchase, but maybe if we're using someone to purchase that can also provide that on the back end, we may pay a little bit of more money in capital, but then we're paying less in general revenue because we're not having to pay in-house for more of that technology, you know, that. So is that something we have looked at that we can come back and look at again? Because I think we have to look at that moving forward. Maybe paying a little bit more out of capital, but then a little less out of general revenue, because those people are going to be supplying the replenishment of technology, the replenishment of a tech house, or repairs, or assistance, maybe even with some of the training with our staff, because that's going to be on their back end.
You're absolutely correct. One of the things that we are looking at is a model for device as a service. So this would look at basically part of the purchase price, and it's, think of it more like a lease rather than a true purchase price. So part of this is really us looking forward at how do we normalize, you know, the purchasing over that life cycle, as well as being able to have the vendor provide support. And then on the end, there's some residual value for those devices that we could potentially recoup, which is something we can't do now because we've always aged our devices out to the point where they were basically just scrap, and you know they were only good for recycling.
Right. So if we take that out to bid, then we've got a situation where we have an ongoing and updated equipment. We have an ongoing of support for our teachers, support for our equipment, support for repair, but we're not pulling from general revenue. All of that could be pulled out of capital funds. And then, you know, there's a competition out there for those kind of bids. So we really could leverage it. We are a huge district with a huge option for businesses. And so we should capitalize on that to benefit not only our staff, our teachers, our students. So I would encourage you, if we're going to do any more looking at renewing our devices, we look at taking that out to bid and encouraging that with, again, our support. I would like to see a package deal so that we're lessening our general revenue dollars and increasing our capital and utilizing it for the best of our students and our teachers.
And that is something that we have been exploring, we'll continue to explore. I just want to reiterate to the board, however, that once you go to any model that is considered as a service, so that is going to be, you know, moving to a specific request of the board to know that every year we are going to be expending a specific amount of dollars. So the way that the board has always operated in previously was we purchased devices because if we had to go through a lean year, we may not have to purchase as many devices, which isn't a great way to, you're basically kicking the can, down the road. It's not a great way to do it. But I just want to make sure that the board understands, which again is why I put slide 40 in there. This is what we're looking at from an annualized amount, and we would need a commitment moving forward if we enter into these kind of agreements. So I just want to put that out there. I'm not saying anything negative about it, but I just want to put that out there that it is something that we would have to maintain on an annual basis, and we would be on the hook for that payment every year.
We are already doing that. I mean, we are already purchasing the devices. We are already maintaining, staff to house them. We are already doing that with the liability that it's an ongoing thing. We're just calling it something different, but we're already doing that. So, I mean, I want to make sure we're clear. We're already doing it in a different fashion, but we're not keeping up with the digital. We're not keeping up with what we need on a long term, or it's costing us more money. So, again, I'd like to see that in the future to do that. I don't want to take up too much time because I know we're short of time here. So I'll pause a minute. I think as we didn't even get into the SIS and the student system. I know Canvas is a great system to work with. I'm with Dr. Hahn about education and things like that. Beefing up our policies are so needed on a regular basis when it comes to technology and loaning of equipment and things like that to, break that digital divide. I think this workshop could have been divided into 3 because I think we still are left with more questions than answers. But at the end of the day, I think the priority right now is they're just all of it is a priority, and we don't have enough. I'm not an IT person, nor am I going to even guess to even tell you I was. But a lot of times I want the common answer. I want the answer that my staff, my students going to understand, parents are going to understand, and we're not IT. We talk about resources. I'm going to ask one more question, Nadia, just because, and that is I want to go back to the vendors and the data sharing. The way in which you said that was a huge concern of mine. It was kind of like, well, we can't really control the vendors. What vendors are you talking about that would have access to my student information?
Well, specifically our student information system vendor would be one of them. But no, we work with all of our vendors, and some vendors may require specific snippets of data, not necessarily anything that's personally identifiable, not necessarily nobody outside of our student information system vendor would actually have any of our student data residing outside of our confines.
So let me make that very clear then. Our student system, we have all that security guaranteed. We have all that verified by Mr. Gibson and everyone that they are not going to be using any of our student data, correct?
The agreement that was signed with EduPoint has security provisions in place to protect our student data, yes.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Member Rendon. And we have about 30 minutes, and I can see that we probably will need to look at our workshop calendar and maybe add another workshop regarding technology, because it seems like there's a lot of questions and we haven't. This is our first round. Just a couple things. First and foremost, I just want to thank all of you for all the time that was spent on this. I did spend a long time. I love how each topic talked about current status, the vision, the plan, and the funding source. I felt like a lot of my questions were answered as I was reading through that, so I want to thank all of you for coming here and all the time that you put forth on that. Also, I just, when I look at some of the things, I thought, wow, in 2017, there were only 12,644 laptops available with the average age of 8 years, and now we're looking at that there's 162,000 devices, with most being less than 2 years old. I think that's a huge, huge, challenge that you've you've overcome, including making sure all the teachers have computers and technology. So I want to acknowledge all the great things that all of you are doing and say thank you so much, because that is huge when you see that in the technology divide. So for me, I just have a few things. For me, it's really the quality of the product. What's that looking like? You know, how are we making sure that the quality stays? I know that when I had one laptop, it didn't last very long, right? So that's my concern, is what the quality looks like and what can we do to look at that. Also, the maintenance. I know that, you know, it's very difficult, but I'd like to see kind of a maintenance plan. And I know you talked about the teachers. We did have a lot of technology reps in every school, and that's no longer in existence with our cuts. And a lot of times it's falling to the library, the media center, media center specialist. So, is that right? Is that fair? What does that look like? So really looking at the maintenance plan and how are those maintained. So kind of like I'd like to see a more comprehensive plan of that. And then I appreciate some of the members talking about professional development. I want to make sure that when we do that professional development that it is at least, bilingual, if not trilingual. We know that the large majority of our students are Hispanic, and then we have a large Arabic population here in Hillsborough County as well, making sure those professional developments. And then the other concern I have is the amount of testing that has come down from the Department of Education, and it's really starting at a very younger age. You have students who are in kindergarten and first grade taking these tests, and I see a really unleveled playing field when you have children who have access to computers, access to technology, who are coming into kindergarten and taking a test, while some children have maybe never had access to a computer. So really looking at that professional development to ensure that we're capturing where a child is, not just because they don't have access to the computer and they don't have that ability. So those are some of my concerns. And then finally, one of my biggest concerns, and I've talked about since I first came on the board, is the phones, and what that looks like when you see violence, when you see grooming, when you see fights and things like that. Like, what can we do? I know Superintendent Davis, I sent you about 7 or 8 months ago, like this pocket phone, where some districts are using that to be able to put your phone securely and making sure that access to the phones constantly. I mean, you have children who are the phones are used, sometimes I go to a high school and it seems like it's a mall, right? Kids are walking around talking like, they're in the mall and things like that. And I worry about what access kids have on the phone and the types of bullying and things that are occurring. A lot of the issues that we're having in our schools, especially high schools, are really connected to the phones, destruction. And what does that look like? What kind of firewalls? What kinds of systems can we put in place, including policy? I know that pocket one was one idea. Just looking at what can we do to minimize this, because I also worry about the loss of academics, the amount of cheating that is occurring also in our schools with the phones, and AirPods as well. I think that's becoming more and more of an issue. The other day I was in a school and I saw a first grader who had an iPhone watch. I mean, these are big challenges that we're facing in the future, and just to kind of look at them, they're not necessarily technology about computer, but they're technology and how they impact our schools. So those are just some concerns. You don't have to answer any of them. Those are just things that I'm concerned about and would like to work on. So thank you. We're going to go around because I know that it's 11:38 and I had several people who wanted to go back around, and we'll start with you, Member Gray.
Okay, so I'm going to put on my fast talk. Now, policy 2261, which is the high needs population, Title I, definitely does not have digital divide. For those of you who mentioned it, it is for the high needs communities. We did put in additional hotspots, Superintendent Davis, if you remember, to bridge that, but the policy, as Rendon has mentioned, and I believe Vaughn, we need to update. No question about it. No question. Secondly, when we talk about the phone, that is the number one, to me, I don't mean to not look at you all, the number one challenge our students mentally are facing, and our teachers. And the value of instructional time is really done in 5-minute increments. If you lose 5 minutes of instructional time during a 45-minute class, that's a lot. And when you use your cell phone, that's going to be quantitatively 10, 15 minutes, not to mention the cheating as well. So when we look at policies update, back to some of the comments made by board members, 4700, 3700, 5136, all about wireless. So when we have our student online safety, we're meeting again, Sheriff Chronister and City of Tampa. We've got Dottie Groover Skipper. We're having a panel that will also pretty much share with the Hillsborough County PTA, that's 40,000 families. We're going to be streamed throughout the district the importance that our parents become aware, Member Combs, of what is going on between your child and what they're seeing on the phone. Mr. Hart, you're very much involved with that. I also want to say, and I'm talking fast, don't forget, Superintendent Davis, that when we talk about homeschooling, we're growing by leaps and bounds. I hope, and I know, Mr. Hart, I know you well, but I hope that our Hillsborough Virtual is able to be expanded and to embrace the growth of homeschool education. And if I have time, maybe you can comment on that, but I'm in the hurry mode. The other thing, and this is Superintendent Davis, I think we can pretty much determine the board members every one of them has embraced concerns about funding. So if we go to page 15, 32, 33, and I'm going to go there because I can't remember the exact amount of money, but the PD alone is, over $1 million. But if we have not figured out, and Ms. Johnson, keep your ears on here, if we haven't figured out an analogy, just look at the insurance reserve. We have an insurance reserve for a reason, because insurance costs a lot of money, and we're going to be changing insurance. Why are we not thinking of a technology reserve? Why, when ESSER right now is like the quasi-reserve, right? Because we know we have it, we're spending it. Thank you, Dr. Weeks, for doing a comprehensive job spending, and Superintendent Davis. But we need to start thinking, if we're talking sustainability, what are we doing for that subject area? Because all of the goodwill and the techies in this room, all of these inventions and all these computers, we've got to keep the district going in a way that is forward. And if we can't sustain, that to me needs to be answered in a way, a vehicle or conduit, whatever you want to call it. We need to set up a reserve. Superintendent Davis, can you remark on that?
Yes, ma'am. Through the chair, we consistently dedicate funding in our budget as soon as we budget at the beginning of the year for technology. And that's inclusive of a multi-year phased-in plan that we know we're going to have to continue to change equipment and potentially software as well. And that's no different. I mean, for us, we're trying to look at leasing equipment versus purchasing equipment. That way it's in a multi-year faceted rollout. And then that way we continue to keep updated material and equipment in front of our children related to laptops and hardware. So for us, we always make that a dedication. Any grants we'll try to chase after, we'll be able to obtain, but we always go, when we build the budget in the forefront, make certain there's adequate dollars being able to be spent annually to make certain that we continue to have that rollover. And then we also leverage E-rate as much and often as we can, as 80% will be returned back on any projects that are qualifying and eligible through that initiative.
And we can appreciate grants, but that's not a sustainable amount of money. Not to contradict you.
No, that's
Davis,
over
I would
and
never do
beyond.
that.
We use that over and beyond.
But we need to, and I'm going to ask that we see a line item, if you will, of a reserve for technology. That's really where I'm coming from. I think we need to start thinking that as a practical issue. Last, the idea of a operations center on page 7, what are we doing with this cost? TOC, Technology Operations Center. We know that ROSAC, an old building, flooding, hurricane, which we didn't have. It's on the 3rd floor right now. We would be underwater. So we're moving it. Is there a cost involved for this particular maneuver? It's called TOC Data Center, page 7, under the Digital Transformation Roadmap section towards the back.
Through the chair. Ma'am, that is something that the district already purchased that building back in 2016.
It's 1 million in capital funding, right? Is that
So here's the thing. When the building was purchased, there was a data center that was roughed out within the building, but it was never completed. So what we've done over the past year, roughly a year now, is we've been completing that data center. So we're still putting some of the finishing touches on ensuring all of the data components, the infrastructure, are contained in there. But that will become our primary data center, and the ROSAC building will become the secondary data center. So it's at this point, it is some capital expenditures that we've been incurring to build this out. But this is something that's been in place. We just haven't utilized it correctly, or we haven't maximized the utilization of it. So now we're going to take advantage of its location. It's outside of the floodplain. We do have a generator there, so it meets the requirements for a data center better than what ROSAC does.
Okay, and I thank you for that, because I think that needs explanation too, along with the evaluatory process. We're talking all these ideas, and board members are very astute. We're going to probably want to be part of the evaluation of the technology plan. Ms. Rendon, we do have a plan, but it's as far as it being concrete and delivered to you in a time, I'm not sure if this has been reviewed with you at all, but do we get involved with the evaluation as board members? Superintendent Davis, would you like to answer?
Yeah, through the chair. For us, it's our job to be able to audit the implementation of any plan that we have. And in that process, we can make certain we share with the board as often as we need to and as frequent as we need to where we are from a financial implementation, where we are from a device implementation, where we are from an instructional software implementation, and where we are from a cybersecurity and infrastructure implementation. So all the facets that we identified today as our major objectives of this plan, we have no problems being able to, whether it be a quarterly update or whether it be a biannually update, to be able to provide the board where we are with that. We have no problems doing that.
Okay, thank you. My time is up. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Gray and Member Perez.
Thank you. So I just have a couple of questions, and then I want to make a statement. So when it came to, on page 16, represent a diverse demographics, and then also the pilot sites, we were looking for the highly impacted schools. Did you just leave it to the administration, or did you complete a survey to see the students who have technology or access to technology in our technological deserts?
We looked at the data that was on here, so we looked at schools that were close to that one-to-one device threshold first to make sure that there wasn't a lot of capital outlay that would be able to get the pilot and showcase schools up to where they were. We then met with leadership, both of the cabinet and the regional superintendents, to work with their leadership to come up with a set of schools that each region, elementary region 1, middle school region 1, et cetera, would recommend that could be part of this program. And from there, we looked at that, trying to get schools and make sure there were ones in each board district, so we had them across the entire county. And that's how we came to arrive at this set of schools. Again, highlighting that it's kind of the beginning set, and we want to scale it to every school in the district.
Okay. So to jump on Board Member Washington and Member Vaughn's, in this pilot, it's making an assumption that students are able to get to a library and they have accessibility. So when we're making investments in technology to improve school outcomes, we of course must plan. If we don't, we plan to fail. And this affects our students. So I feel that implementing within District 5 can provide us with the understanding, with regard to our students and significant gains that in student achievement that the district would especially want to implement with students most at risk. And I believe this will make the students also in that community feel very supported and encouraged. There's components to providing at-risk students with technology, and that's the interactive to learning rather than drill and kill. And that board members means that they are provided information and then they're expected to memorize this information. And then they're tested with multiple choice questions. So in more affluent schools, the students tend to be more immersed in the interactive of technology. Am I correct?
I mean, through the chair, I think it's individually based on individual students. And as I go back to District 5, and as Mrs. Gray talked about, we have additional funding, such as Title I funding, that we've really accelerated the exposure and accessibility to technology in District 5. With that said, it's just all based on the individuals. And for our schools, what we do a really good job is providing early extended learning opportunities, which happens before, during, and after school for students to have accessibility to these units, to be able to build their capacity and usage of these of our equipment that we implement.
But they have, in District 5, they tend to have, compromise by disparaging dollars and teachers and services. And these disparities compound the lack of access to not just the students in the schools, but also within their homes. So I'm going to go back to request that District 5 have someone, have a school represented, because I would love to know and see how this impacts, especially the high needs students and the high needs areas and these schools that Member Washington represents. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I want to make sure as we expand the 3 to 5 schools in the showcase, that's going to be, I think it's around $10 million for each showcase school, so that's going to be $20 million. We'll work that process out, but we'll make certain that we expand the initiative to make certain that we have accessibility in everybody's district.
And just to be clear, from the pilot school perspective, the classroom technology standard and the training that will be put in will address some of those pieces as far as the impact on students that have those challenges. The difference between showcase and pilot, I think, is not smaller than we think, but from an impact of how students will learn with technology and the pedagogy of how teachers will begin to implement technology and learning, and for schools moving forward that will have those schools to lean on, there'll be a lot of learning that goes on in the pilot schools there. So
Thank you, Member Prez. Superintendent Davis?
Yes, ma'am, and also want to remind that we are going to, and have started through operations and also in conjunction with academic services, we are remodeling and transforming and refreshing the media centers in every one of our transformational schools, and that has been a priority, and that'll be in the next 4 or 5 year process that we continue to implement, and that's also inclusive of what technology will look like.
Thank you. Member Rendon?
First of all, I do want to make sure you understand that I do appreciate this comprehensive information. It is a lot. It was a lot to be given. I do appreciate it. I tend to break it down so it's a little more common knowledge, because I don't talk IT. So I do appreciate the volume that you gave us, and it was a volume. But again, I want to make sure, and I want to make sure that you guys are aware of Senate Bill 52. Regarding social media with our students and things like that as we move forward. Keep that in your forefront as we're looking at new devices. I'm looking for innovative, creative ways that we're utilizing our funding, not relying on ESSER dollars, not relying on the ways we've always done it, because we know that's not worked. So we need to have better ideas and come up with creative ways of being able to keep us up to date. And with a diverse community, I echo my fellow board members, and I'd like to see 5, 1 from each district, a school for the pilot. I think you need to see that diversity amongst all of us. It also will show you in your data where you're going to have to provide additional support or less support based upon area and region. So I think you need to have that for your long-term goals. But I want to make sure that I don't not emphasize the fact that we could not do what we do without your team. Clearly, I call for dumb things, so absolutely need your team, 110%. But we are also going to be asking the bigger questions of the bigger scale, right? you guys are part of that infinite what happening, and I'm going to go, okay, but I need to make it happen and make it happen reasonably in a very cost-effective manner because, again, ultimately the two most important people in this entire piece are our teachers and our students. And if they are not at the forefront of everything we do, it's just, they have to be the priority. So thank you.
Thank you much. Thank you very much, Member Rendon. And I wanted to mention only for myself, I see that for me, a lot of my Title I schools do have one-to-one because they do have additional funding. I think it's those schools that are kind of like right on the edge, that the need is very high, but they don't have the Title I dollars. I don't want to mention them, but I think of two schools that don't have the Title I funding and they don't have that strong PTA, and those are the schools that probably are the ones that are in most need. So I do find that a lot of the Title I schools are very much one-to-one when I go out to my school. So I want to say I think that it has been a priority for all of you, and I see that, and I just want to acknowledge that as well. Superintendent Davis, as you close out.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you all so very much. Really appreciate it. Some very important discussion items that we discussed today. I do like the fact I sent all the board members while I was sitting here during this workshop the Gibson report, so that way you can review it from 2016, 2017. I do like the fact of being able to unpack some training modules for internet interaction, for digital literacy, not only for our students but for our parents as well. I think that was and I love the webinar idea, to be able to push out webinars so that parents can be actively engaged in what we offer, and that way that's only going to help student performance. And then also we'll make certain that we are looking at a timeline for Infor, what that looks like for August 20th, explanation of why we've had third-party interaction with multiple departments actively engaged, and why that rollout has to be at that date. And then also put a couple of that with some financial needs in that process, and then look at the showcase schools and determine if we can expand that to 5, and work with each individual board member who does not have a current showcase school, and being able to discuss what that school looks like and what it will entail. And then also looking at maintenance for our equipment. What's the maintenance maintain, not only for sustainability for finances, but how we're going to maintain within our schools, and who's going to lead that process, whether it be personnel or leverage on students for internships. And then also looking at a legal liability, and this is not your spot of it, your job is to help us block it, but looking at the legal liabilities for what we have related to cell phone usage within our schools. It continues to cripple us related to negative interactions, airdrops, issues with video and looking up inappropriate content. How can we have a stronger grip on that, and working through our code of conduct and student engagement officer to be able to make that a reality, and then also making certain that, like the quarterly or biannually update to the board where we are with our implementation of our technology plan. So that's all captured today. We really appreciate it. We do know that we can continue. We have a lot of professional development centered around all of the new initiatives that we are looking to pilot. And I also want to say is that the biggest thing you see us in the major ramp up of the last 3 years is because this technology has been in the forefront of this administration. And COVID really sensationalized the disadvantages that were exposed to technology, and what has and wasn't put in emphasis in prior years. And not to say that disrespectfully, but COVID really exposed where we were, from infrastructure to equipment to software to implementation to SIS, Infor, all those systems. So it is a priority for us. We know that it is in the forefront, and it has to be what makes us most efficient, and we'll continue to update the board as we continue to move forward, and we appreciate your feedback today.
Thank you, everyone, and this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.